Episode 302 of the TV Dudes, recorded September 30th, 2020. First, do no harm. It has long been the medical golden rule. First, do no harm. So don't, for example, put a series of psychopaths in charge of your mental hospital like they do in Ratched on Netflix. Don't send your babies off to be raised by a killer android like in HBO Max's Raised by Wolves. Don't try to kill a young lord because he might just have a Holmes on his side like in Enola Holmes on Netflix. Maybe don't jump into an extradimensional portal like in Lovecraft Country on HBO. Or maybe just look at how the real doctors do it, like the doctors in HULU's Transplant. But before we get to all of that, I'm Randy.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Les.
And we're the TV Dudes. Guys, it's a packed week. And
lots of TV.
Sharp-eared listeners may note that there is something on our list that is not TV, technically speaking.
TV-ish.
Yep. And we are going to be talking about that and what that means a little bit later. But before we get to that, as always, we're going to launch into the Power Rankings.
Power Rankings.
Oh, guys, you know what time it is. Every week, we got new shows we're talking, and we can't just talk about these shows. We got to know where these shows line up with everything we've talked about for the year. And, exciting milestone, 126 shows as of 3:01 we've talked for this year. So, what do we mean by where do they line up? Well, we comb through the internet. We search IMDb, Metacritic, Rotten Tomatoes, and we tabulate all those scores, and we get the definitive ranking out of that 126 shows we watched. So last week, we watched Away over on Netflix with Hilary Swank and what's that guy from every show? Josh Charles. I always forget his name, but I can never forget his face.
All those
Dan
pop
Rydell.
collars in Hot American Summer.
So that's kind of low on our list. That's a 101 out of 126 over there, season 1 on Netflix. But a pinch higher on our list, I'm surprised not even higher, is Woke over on Hulu at number 79.
I'm surprised about this, too. Everybody I know who watched it loved it.
Yeah, and you would think, actually, no, you would think that the critic scores would be higher, but yeah, Metacritic is 61 on this, and then IMDb, which I am still baffled by how IMDb does their rankings, but it's only got a 64%.
Is that because of racists downvoting it? Is that a thing that's going on?
We shouldn't perpetuate that story. We don't know.
But it probably is, let's be honest.
Oh, man, that would be a cruel reality. It also could be it just came out, so maybe the numbers are going to shift if people watch it a little later.
Yeah, Kyle, are you going to recalculate all this? Are you going to recalculate all this at the end of the year? A big recalculation?
So I recalculate it in chunks because, 126 shows, I'm not going to check 126 shows every week.
You have a job, so you have a life.
Yeah. But no, I always check the top 10, and then what I do is I check shows around. So you guys may remember I was fiddling with the Letterkenny numbers. Mm-hmm. Well, Woke tied with Letterkenny, which I knew was wrong because Letterkenny doesn't have a Metacritic or one of their Rotten Tomato scores. So listeners, get over there, rate that show because Letterkenny's awesome.
Yep.
But yeah, so I went and checked that and all the other shows in there. Especially if there's ties or anything, it'd be weird to say this show is tied like our number 62 show, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which isn't what we watched last week. It's AP Bio Season 3 over on Peacock.
Those are both great shows. I don't know that either one of them should be that low.
No,
this is actually top 50% now.
All right, that's fair.
The 60 spot, it does seem low because all year this has been kind of a lower spot. But man, we are putting the numbers on the board.
Oh, yeah.
watching them shows. The power. The power.
You the power.
I gotta say, now that we're into October, that I'm looking forward to the end of the year stuff. I start thinking best of the year list. It's my favorite thing.
I know Randy loves a list.
I do.
I gotta say, that episode 300 was a lot of fun because
It really was.
you could just forget about 2020 for a second, which there's been a lot of great TV, but it's like, it's always going to be 2020 shows that like mark this year where all we could do is watch TV. But it was nice to think about other years where we watched TV.
Yeah, and not because we had to be inside.
Yeah, but because we wanted to.
Exactly. All right, Kyle, thank you for the power rankings as always.
Thank you guys.
And a reminder for our listeners that you can support us by going over to patreon.com/tvdudes. Throw us $1 an episode. In exchange, we keep up with the streaming services, we pay for our hosting costs, and you get bonus content each week. This week, it is TV Dudes Movie Night. We're going to talk about a favorite each of us picked that we assigned each other to watch last week. And also, as you hear this, there should be a bonus episode of us talking about the newly released Shudder movie Scare Me, starring Aya Cash and Josh Rubin, which every one of our listeners will get, not just patron listeners, and it'll give you a preview of what our Patreon episodes sound like.
And along with that, we've also got our interview with writer, director, and star of Scare Me, Josh Rubin.
I am a big fan of all that College Humor stuff he
That's
did.
right,
Like,
that's
I've
right.
seen him in a ton of those skits.
Yeah, he directed a huge majority of College Humor stuff.
Yeah, and without spoiling too much, I think we all greatly enjoyed this. So, yeah, give those a listen. Also, we have our $20 showrunner level, which lets you add 2 shows into our rotation. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is on deck whenever it shows up on Netflix, and it's just hanging over me like the sword of Damocles. And our listener Jean Paul has pledged and settled on Big Dogs on Amazon Prime, which is on our slate. So yeah, if you want to throw in, if there's a show that you think we're missing, you can put it on the list. We do not promise to like the shows, as some of our patrons have discovered.
Yeah, that's
Indeed.
true.
But
Also, buyer beware. We are not asking them to set up for the $20 every episode.
No, by no
right?
means. No, yeah.
Because, funny enough, that same person we're talking about accidentally set up for that level and didn't find out till he was about $80 in.
Well, thank you for your contributions, and sorry about that.
And they hate my show.
3 more shots.
All right.
But yeah, it is. You do want to make sure you check the right box.
Correct.
Indeed.
Yep.
Don't play around with Patreon.
Yeah, because honestly, I have very little idea how Patreon works.
It's magic.
It's just magic to me.
It gives us money.
Money, please. All right. So before we get to the new business for the week, I wanted to mention that this week you might notice we have a what is technically a movie on our list, and we've talked about.
Wait, but it's got the girl from Stranger Things and the guy from The Witcher. This is like Netflix TV shows.
Yeah,
So they did this as a series, right?
There
They
used to
were
be
just in the back lot. They were just there. They had all these period costumes.
Quick,
from
get your
something.
iPhone. I got an idea.
You can't tell me there's not a London set somewhere that anyone could go to. Yeah, but yeah, so they've done TV movies before. That used to be a thing, and we kind of feel like with the way that things have gone. When we started this podcast like 10 years ago, we all had cable. We were all watching stuff on cable, and now none of us have cable. We're all watching streaming services, and movies aren't going to movie theater. They're not going to movie
Movies
theaters
used to
right now.
happen. I mean, they used to happen in these buildings where huge crowds of people gathered with no fear.
Well, and at the start of the podcast, really, you were in 3 camps. You had cable, so you knew what was going on with the shows. You waited for things to come out on DVD because really streaming hadn't been perfected yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you were one of those hipsters who was like, I don't have a TV. Oh, I don't watch that. So,
Or fourth option, you were a
Yeah.
pirate.
pirates as well.
Well, there was a,
You guys
there was a
did-
time even before that. Like I remember working my way, my broke / patience exercising out of college, where you'd lose your free cable of wherever you were living or whatever dorm or whoever had set that up years ago. Hope that you rented the right apartment that still had cable somehow. and then eventually I worked my way down to like, well, I'll just rent the movie that I can't afford to go to the movie theater to see. You know what? There's this new thing called Netflix. I bet if I'm super patient, I can just make notes in a little pad of shit I want to watch 8 months from now, and put it on a queue to be mailed to me.
Yep.
And then somehow streaming had there were a few years before streaming where torrenting, as I've heard from people I've, or read about on Wikipedia.
Is that the dark web, Les?
I think it is. I think you can buy an assassin heroin on there too.
There's literally a YouTube video about how to use the dark web where the guy whispers into the camera like, "No, don't tell anybody, but the way you get on the dark web is you have to download this." He's like out in front of his house too. I'm like, this is
That's
weird.
so great.
Kyle,
I'm on a watch list for watching
Kyle,
this.
are you sure that's not just you weren't accidentally out watching an ASMR video?
Oh wait, I'm the guy in the
Hacker
video.
ASMR.
Wait, this is a hand mirror. What am I doing?
So we decided that because there's some interesting stuff coming out that is basically straddling the line between TV and movies, that we're going to start covering stuff that might not technically be a TV show. It might not be a serialized product. Instead of a miniseries, it might be a 2-hour movie or a 3-hour movie or whatever. Because honestly, Enola Holmes is one of those things that was sort of being buzzed about, and I think we all want to talk about it, and decided it sort of should go in the rotation. So we discussed a larger thing about whether or not TV Dudes had sort of outlived its brand, whether or not we needed to rename or rethink. And I think we came down to the agreement that, no, we kind of like our brand. We are aware that dudes for some people can be gendered. And that, that we apologize if that has ever been a problem for anybody. But I think in general, most of our listenership is just like, nah, man, that chair is a dude, that hamburger's a dude, whatever is a dude.
Mm-hmm. And Enola Holmes is a dude.
And also, technically, we're all dudes. We have not had a female dude since Ashley. So,
in the same respect, everything's TV now.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it comes to our maybe if cutscenes and video games get a little bit longer, we can add that into the rotation. But if it comes through our television set, besides video games,
or in some cases, your phone, if it's Quibi, or your laptop if it's HBO Max and you don't have a Apple TV for some reason.
HDMI cable. But we'll get into that.
Oh, I'm good. I figured we would. All right, so let's start with Enola Holmes. Let's talk about Netflix's new 2-hour movie, which I think will probably be a series of movies, much like Old Guard was.
It's got to be, or honestly, I hope it is a series of movies like The Librarian with Noah Wyle and turns into a series. Because I'm glad that we use this as a let's talk about whatever's streaming on my TV, because I thought Enola Holmes was a series that Netflix was dropping, because Netflix drops a shitload of series with no... that's how Stranger Things happen. Yeah. And it was literally when it drops today, oh cool, I pulled it up and looked at the runtime, and instead of 1 season, it said 2 hours.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, guess it's a movie.
So this is based on a series of books by Nancy Springer, which I did not know about that, but it's based on a series of books, which probably means we'll get those sequels if it does well.
I hope so.
Is that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's great grandniece?
Yeah, I don't think so. So, were you guys disappointed that it was not a series? Did you think it worked as a movie? Because I actually think it worked pacing wise. This is 2 hours well spent. I didn't think that I never felt like it was dragging. I never felt like I needed a lot more. I felt like it was about perfectly paced.
No, there was quite a bit going on. I really enjoyed it. It still could have been shorter for me, but that's almost every movie that's 2 hours. It did feel like it was a little slow in the middle for me.
Really, the pacing thing that I look at in terms of should this be a movie, should it be a series, is could I see the separate episodes? And honestly, in this, it almost seemed like one continuous story. Mm-hmm. This was one adventure.
Oh, yeah,
this
was
on.
one adventure.
Sure. And I don't know that I want to see a series of this. This, it's funny because we're comparing this to a TV show, but Sherlock, which was a TV show, had some episodes that felt like straight up movies. And they did an hour and a half. And they hit it hard.
Well, that's what's interesting about this to me is that this draws from the different eras of Sherlock. I mean, definitely the runtime and the sort of treating this like an episodic movie is similar to the Sherlock, the most recent one with Benedict Cumberbatch. Their Sherlock Holmes is very much the fighty Sherlock Holmes of the Robert Downey Jr. movies, I would say, and the Guy Ritchie movies, rather.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that those two are probably pretty heavy influences on this.
I really enjoy it. So as far as seeing it as a series, because I thought it was one, it was hard to not go into it going, please be a ton of this. I wanted there to be a lot of it, and there's just going to be this one. But it's a series of books, and it seems like it did well. So hopefully they keep making more of them. I think I want it to be a series, at least of movies now, because even though this feels like the grand kickoff adventure, I could see Enola being somewhere between Sherlock Holmes and Encyclopedia Brown. Taking all the cases that Henry Cavill's Sherlock is just too arrogant to give a shit about. Like, I don't know, those poor people don't have real problems or interesting enough problems for me. And Enola's got a real heart for people and is like, but we got to help the lost lamb. Where Sherlock's like, curious. I will write down the math of the arc of the fall of that lamb. Throw 12 more over.
Yeah.
How did you guys feel about the breaking of the third wall?
Oh, the fourth wall.
I liked it.
Or fourth wall. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked it. I saw someone made a point. Someone said, I feel like Enola should have her own Watson figure. And then someone said, she does. You're Watson.
Yeah.
Was that you, Les?
No, but that's
somebody
dead
else. Yeah.
That is an interesting way to look at that. I hadn't thought about that yet.
That hadn't clicked for me, but I think I enjoyed the fourth wall break. I usually do if the
I loved
thing
it
can
too.
sustain it. This had a madcap energy to it.
Yep.
Yeah. No, the thing I liked about her character was that she was very smart, but then she was also like a fish out of water. She had been secluded by her mom.
Yeah.
And what I had hoped to see was something kind of similar to the arrogance that Sherlock brings, where he makes everybody feel stupid by intimidating them. Like, what if she had kind of a flowery making everybody feel stupid because she doesn't realize they're not as smart as she is? And that's where I think they could have maybe had a little bit more fun with like how they showed her intelligence. Instead, we get a lot of that through the her narration. That's what it kind of felt like. It kind of felt like reading the books, and like you would get his thought process, not because he was telling you, but because that's how books are. The narrator.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is a book thing, and I think that's part of what works. But also, I disagree with you. I don't want her to make people feel small. I like that Enola Holmes is she's like Les said, she's like the street smart one. Or the street friendly one. She's in there.
Street friendly.
She's talking to the people who would otherwise, no one was going to bother with this little lord. Like Sherlock wasn't going to be bothered with it. And she's the one who's helping people who otherwise wouldn't be touched upon by the city. I like her as like the girl who has more empathy than the other two Holmes, and I think that having her make other people feel small would maybe be a dissonant note.
We can't all be right, Randy.
I like that they spend the movie kind of redeeming Sherlock's character, at least towards her, a little bit. Even though they don't really, it's not like they need him at the end to take her in or anything. But I felt like it was a nice touch that they go ahead and show a scene where you see his heart, where he looks at Mycroft and is like, you know what, you stop sweating the kid.
So I wanted to ask you guys about this. Millie Bobby Brown obviously is great. Like, she's fantastic in this role. What did you think of Henry Cavill's Sherlock? Because that dude's kind of a meathead.
I was shocked. Yeah. I did not give any fucks about The Witcher. I tried, and I just don't care.
Same.
I really liked him as Superman, despite all of the things that happened around him. He should have been in a brighter colored suit, but he was... I get why they looked around the planet and went, "You, sir."
Yeah. None of that is his fault. He's great in Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation.
Yes.
He's great in
Man from Uncle. Is that the one where he keeps cocking his arms?
Yeah, no, that's Mission Impossible.
That's Mission Impossible. But, yes.
Man
all
from
of those. Fuck it.
Man from Uncle's so weird because it's him and Armie Hammer, both of whom have been just in terrible movies, and they've been terrible in them, but they're both great in Man from Uncle, and it's a shame that movie didn't do better.
Yeah, and so that's how I really want to like Henry Cavill in most things. Also, he's a genuine giant nerd, and that's wonderful. I really enjoyed his Holmes a lot more than I thought I would.
I think he nails the scene where he has to be inquisitive, because that's like a big trait of Sherlock. Like when you see him doing his thing, you buy it.
Yeah.
But also something, they made him look smaller as much as they could. There's a scene where we're getting some exposition about how his abilities work, and there's these like old-timey illustrations, like one of him boxing, one of him like smoking a pipe, and these illustrations are skinny Henry Cavill. Like they definitely drew him tiny.
Yeah.
What did you think about their Mycroft? I thought they might have made him a little too evil. Like I liked Mycroft in Sherlock, where he was like, it was Mark Gatiss playing him, and he was kind of
where
like,
he was like a writer of the show.
Yeah, but he was kind of above it all and like puppet master playing things. But he was smart, and he was generally maybe a little sociopathic. But this guy's just kind of a dick.
So what I always liked about the, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kyle. You were going to say?
No. Yeah, that Mycroft was very calculating.
Yeah.
And would like hold his emotions back. Sometimes you'd even feel like he was a computer.
Yeah, for sure.
But this guy just kind of seems like off the hinge, like he can't be bothered.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how I feel. I don't even care.
And he throws tantrums at a teenage girl. Like he yells at it. He just berates a teenage girl.
And they're Mrs. Hudson. I mean, she's not Mrs. Hudson, but they're person that kind of fills in some history on him. I feel like nails it that, or at least in this one, this Mycroft is the kid who's not as smart as Sherlock. Like he's not touched by that genius. Whereas I'm used to a Mycroft that is differently geniused.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
that like Sherlock is the guy that notices and remembers cataloging all the different cigarette ash so that he can tell it off the bottom of your shoe or what mustard stain and where you were this morning or what kind of cat you have. And Mycroft is the guy who recognizes human motive. Like he doesn't know what you smoked or whatever, but he absolutely knows to have cigarettes ready to play you into this negotiation.
Yeah, I agree.
And
also,
that's why Mycroft's always government and Sherlock's always this like can barely work with the authorities.
Right.
Because he doesn't. He's Vulcan. He doesn't get this.
Helena Bonham Carter as Eudora, the sort of like weird woman who's produced these children, is fucking perfect.
They really did that great. She's not a good mom. Like I mean, on the one hand, she's a great mom, but like the movie really, I felt like does a good job of showing that like. No, she's a kind of a disappointing shit show of a parent in a lot of regards. Like
she didn't prepare any of them for the world.
Yeah, none of them, not at all. And the other adults that are mad at her for it are, in a lot of regards, absolutely right.
Yeah.
They also shot all her scenes in like one afternoon.
Oh yeah, she's barely in this, but she's very, her presence is felt where she is. And I thought that the bit with her and Enola at the end was earned and done well.
Bern Gorman, I believe is the guy's name. The villain in the bowler hat.
Yeah.
He's from Pacific Rim and beatboxing competitions.
Oh yeah, that's where I know him from.
I'm assuming Pacific Rim and not beatboxing.
Not beatboxing competitions.
Go YouTube Bern Gorman beatboxing. It's amazing. But he is fucking perfect here.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap, did they get a good villain?
Man, the fight scene between him and Enola is great. They've got this. Netflix has this weird ad. I don't know if you guys have seen it on Facebook, the video game fight ad that shows that fight, and it's like it like puts in Scott Pilgrim like special effects. It's a very weird and off tone thing, but it also kind of works and would make people want to watch the show.
Well, I overall enjoyed this. I don't know about y'all.
I really liked it.
More.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to more.
Not necessarily my thing. Here's the thing. I don't hate it enough to... Like, I don't even think I hate it. I just, like, wasn't as excited about it. I had that garbage song from the trailer stuck in my head, like, all week long. But, yeah, no, my wife loved it, so I'm definitely going to be watching all these.
Kyle, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Were you offended because it was in England, but it was not British enough?
Yeah, it's funny because it didn't necessarily feel like a Brit. I don't know.
It was a very Americanized London. It was very
there's a difference between a movie with British people in it and a British movie. Yeah. This was. I don't know. This kind of felt like when somebody gets the success that Millie Bobby Brown has gotten with Stranger Things. And they're like, hey, what do you want to do? And it's like, well, I've been doing TV. I want to try a movie. Like, let's see how good I do that.
Well, this is my favorite series of books. Let's go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if it was a different climate, who knows? Maybe this would have been something that went to theaters or, I mean, I imagine Netflix would have still done it, but they did some of their past films they did for like a limited theatrical release just to get like the Oscar nominations.
Well, I think like Disney was going to do Artemis Fowl in the theater, and then that just didn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
And as I understand it, Artemis Fowl wasn't that great, though I didn't watch it.
Yeah, that's what I hear, too.
But this seems like if it hadn't been Netflix, this might have been a theatrical release. I mean, I can see it.
It was definitely of that caliber, but the that garbage song. Here's the thing. I don't hate it. It's still stuck in my head. I still like it, but I don't like that. I like it. I don't know. I got some.
Speaking of jarring, mismatched tones, I don't know what we were planning to talk about next.
No, let's jump right into Ratched. Yeah.
Yeah.
Randy knows what I'm about to ask about.
Yeah, so also on Netflix this week there was the prequel series to Cuckoo's Nest this is part of Ryan Murphy's deal that he made with Netflix, and he's already done Hollywood and The Politician. This is the third of the shows. Who knows how many he's making, because he's making them with co-authors, and he seems to like just pump these out. What's weird
James
is that
Patterson style.
there's 18 episodes listed on IMDb. There's like 18 written. Sarah Paulson is down for 18 episodes. So they've clearly already renewed this for a season 2.
Oh, wow. So 18 in... Oh, that's 18 from both seasons? 9 seasons.
So they've already got the back 9 in there?
They must. This was 10 episodes, wasn't it? Wasn't this 10 episodes?
I don't know. I didn't make
Or was it?
That's like the Netflix special.
It might have been 9.
Give me a Netflix number 10.
So, yeah, it's co-written by Evan Romansky, who is also clearly the showrunner. He has not done anything else that I know of. I think we came down to different places on this to start with, but then by the end we got to the same place, which is, this is a weird show. It's beautiful. It's production-wise. It is a period piece. It's set in, what, the 50s?
Yeah, 40s, 50s.
And it is about a mental hospital. It's about this woman, Nurse Ratched, Mildred Ratched, who comes to work at this mental hospital and sort of weasels her way up to head nurse. And it's
a few years before a certain Jack Nicholson comes to stay.
So this is the weird thing. Is Nurse... I've only seen Cuckoo's Nest. It's been a long time since I read or seen Cuckoo's Nest. Is Nurse Bucket in Cuckoo's Nest? Like, the name sounded familiar.
I don't. Funny enough, I watched the trailer for it the other day, unrelated to this. I guess we had maybe seen some parallel marketing, but I forgot so much from this movie.
Yeah, there's some nods in here from what I remember. I mean, there's the whole thing where at the end of Cuckoo's Nest, spoilers, the Native American guy basically puts a pillow over lobotomized Jack's face and kills him. And then there's this weird runner in this where Ratched was basically one of the spoiler reveals here is she's not a nurse. She snuck into the Korean War, and because of her fucked up backstory, which I don't know how much of that I don't think you got to any of that, Les.
No. No, and Judy Davis's character Bucket is not. I don't think in the book.
Okay. So she in the Korean War.
There's not even a first name to Nurse Ratched. She is not a backstory character.
In the Korean War, she basically slips into being a nurse in the military. She has no qualifications, and she basically starts putting the pillow over people's mouths to kill them when they ask for mercy killings. It's a weird. That is a weird thematic note. Like, why would she be the one using the pill? But that's their link to the Cuckoo's Nest thing. Then there's little weird notes like that. Like, basically, this is harmed by being linked with Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah. So I get trying to make her the angel of death to show why she thinks lobotomizing people later is helping them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense.
But that also shows the entire problem I have with this, in that she's not a supervillain source of evil that's going to make a claw glove after the parents of the neighborhood kids burn her alive. Like, she's not She's not Freddy or Jason.
Yeah.
And this show very much feels like it wants to elevate her to that. It's been since high school since I've read Cuckoo's Nest, the novel. We had a teacher, Miss Alsop, who had a bunch of copies of it at the back that they would not let her give to students because that would be evil. But they were just there if you wanted them. Same way I read Catcher in the Rye. But between that and the movie, she's just emblematic of the society at the time. Like, she's just authority. So to make her this like super villain undercuts for me the like very real theme of the original work. Like, that the world is tough. It's not singularly evil people that I'm worried about. It's how you can bureaucratize this level of just grind you under to get rid of you for sticking your head up.
I will say this, Les, having watched all of it, I don't believe that the goal is to turn him into a supervillain. I think that is not how the show goes. What they are trying to do is make her larger than life, and I think that is the problem. It's not that they're trying to make her this evil villain, because she is the protagonist for all of her ambition, for all of the things that she does. She's not the worst person here by any means. There's some really awful people, including her brother, who turns out to be just a complete psychopath, and her brother's like nurse, who turns out to be even worse. And there's a lot of story here that I really like, and I feel like the audience for this is the audience that liked Hannibal. This is that weird operatic, not based in reality. Like, their take on mental illness here is insultingly bad. Like, they have a character show up with multiple personalities, and that character is not remotely like what it's supposed to be like. And same with their psychopaths, same with her. Like, all the mental illness stuff here is basically a throwback. It is a throwback to when it was just used as a generic evil thing. But they've got this whole thing where she's like, she and her brother, who is the kid who kills all the priests in the beginning.
Yeah.
They had this fucked up adoption story where they got adopted and abused, and he burned down the house, and they're both on the run, and they've been like, and then she like had to abandon him, and like they go deep into all that. Plus, she is a closeted lesbian. And she has a relationship with Cynthia Nixon's character, who works for the governor, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, who is almost unrecognizable. And the cast on this is phenomenal. Everybody gives great performances. And
I loved Hollywood. I love American Horror Story most of or half the seasons probably. This should be right up my alley. Like, I loved Hannibal. Like, I can't express enough how much this show looks amazing. It is beautifully shot. The cast is great. It's purely its connection to source material and being so out of step with it.
Also, by the way,
just not be connected to this.
Sharon Stone is in this playing Lenore Osgood, basically a crazy rich woman whose psychopathic son has a tie to the psychiatric doctor who runs the hospital, and that's a crazy fucked up. Like, she's got a monkey, and her son has no arms and legs, and there's the reason he has no arms and legs is one of the more fucked up things that happens in this show. Like, this is strange and weird, and like there's drugs and lurid. Murder and mutilation. Like it is lurid.
The word it's just always how, and it's a Ryan Murphy show, like, which is great. It's just weird source material to pick.
I will say this.
Why not just have done this? Just name her something else. The woman didn't even have a first name in the fucking book.
Yeah, I will say this. I think that I understand why you would do it, because it gives like Hannibal. Hannibal benefited from being drawn on this universe of books that was created by Richard Harris. Mm-hmm. And Richard Harris, right? I think that's right.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
This benefits from being tied into the Cuckoo's Nest, and that it gets people to watch and be like, you get the little Easter eggs and stuff like that. But the downside is, as you said, it can really be a turnoff if you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense at all. And Cuckoo's Nest is, Cuckoo's Nest is not like a super serious drama. The way that Nicholson choose scenery, it is melodramatic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it's completely off tone. It's just that it feels a little too larger than life and a little too, as you said, lurid. But I think that if you can get around the this is not Nurse Ratched. Like, if you just pretend that this is, if they were to lead in and do their own new Cuckoo's Nest movie based on this, that was like of the same level, then maybe that would. This is an alternate world. This is Earth 2 Nurse Ratched.
Okay.
If you can plug into that, I actually think this works quite well. It's just, it is lurid, and it is not for everybody. Like, if someone comes up to me and it's like, should I watch this? I'm going to ask them some questions. I'm going to be like, well, do you really love Cuckoo's Nest?
Do you like slasher movies?
Then you shouldn't. Did you really love Hannibal and you want something more like that? Well, then you should watch this. Did you like Hollywood? Which, honestly, I think Hollywood is weaker than this.
Really?
Hollywood had some major problems for me. I thought its wish fulfillment was honestly a little too much wish fulfillment. I didn't buy it. I buy Ratched way more than I buy Hollywood.
Wow. All right.
Maybe because Ryan Murphy doing optimism just doesn't fit me. Ryan Murphy doing cynicism just seems perfect.
Either way, I think we're all just waiting on the next season of Politician.
For sure. Politician is the best thing he's done on Netflix. But I would recommend this, and strongly recommend this to some people, and then not recommend it to others. I came down not hating it, not loving it, but glad I watched it, I guess.
Cool.
Totally different tone. Let's talk about HBO Max and Raised by Wolves. And Les, I think you might have some opinions about HBO Max.
I do. I mean, this Ridley Scott guy makes a hell of a TV show, and I'm really hoping that it can jump to like TV.
Yeah, not
because
like
I'm sorry, but HBO Max is the one that is still in a pissing contest with Roku and Amazon. Not because Roku and Amazon are price gouging. It sounds like from what Roku has press released about it that they just offered the same deal as everybody else, and HBO and Peacock didn't want that same deal.
They're like, we're not TV, we're HBO.
And like, no, okay, whatever. So anyway,
we're not your friends.
The baffling thing that is HBO Max, I still have the HBO app on my Roku, and it has 80% of what's on HBO Max.
Yeah.
Except for just like a Easter egg, find them if you can, and a couple of original series. Like there's a couple of movies I think that aren't on the HBO app that are on Max, but I don't know which ones. I'll go look later. So I've got my laptop on a TV tray hooked up with an HDMI cable to my TV, which I had to take off the wall.
So Raised by Wolves is only Max? It's not actual HBO?
No. Yeah. Same with the Great British Pottery Throw Off, or whatever the fuck that's going to be called. Like there's a handful of series that are just on Max. I think they're Pose but real life competition. Dragon Ball.
Yeah, that one's HBO Max.
That's only on Max. Doom Patrol's only on Max. So anyway, I did finally hook the computer up and start watching Raised by Wolves, the Ridley Scott android mom. I had already watched a movie called I Am Mother.
Okay.
Which feels really silly. When Raised by Wolves started, and I was like, have I seen this? Because I Am Mother is entirely there's a robot in a facility of frozen human embryos that is tasked with trying to restart humanity. And it, of course, gets more and more horrific.
Aw, like WALL-E.
Right? Exactly like WALL-E, but with a baby stuck in there for a long time. Instead of a little houseplant. So I am halfway through the third episode of Raised by Wolves. Definitely digging the Fritz Lang killer robot craziness, whatever the fuck's going on. Metropolis looking bot.
Oh, big Metropolis vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as soon as it started... Well, I think I told you guys this a second ago. Like, it took me a second before I realized it was Ridley Scott. I thought somebody was just like, man, they got some balls on them. But then when I saw the Metropolis helmets, I was like, for real? But I guess Ridley Scott gets away with that.
This, as I watch it, this was weird, like survival sci-fi when it starts. It's like they're on a deserted planet. It reminded me of Lost in Space on Netflix.
Yes. Yeah, when it first started, I was like, oh, Lost in Space.
It was small. It was contained. It was like this little group. Mm-hmm. It was a weird little family. They were just trying to survive on this hostile planet. And then they start widening.
The Vikings TV show comes into play.
Then they start widening out to like this crazy atheist versus religious war and killer androids. And there was a colony ship, and the
atheists lost the war and didn't have the money to, like, the atheists send androids and no life support systems and embryos, and the religious side built a giant fucking ark and put 1,000 people on it.
Yeah.
In cryosleep.
And I think for me, I watched, I think, 3 or 4 episodes of this, maybe the first 3 and then maybe one more. And the further they expanded, the less interest I had.
I could see that. I was super interested in the idea of this android set up to birth these babies, where they hooked up the little kind of mock-up umbilicals and all kinds of stuff, and like, oh, y'all are, whoever built you or designed you definitely is making nods to how it all really works, but at the same time, it's very much kind of a fancified.
Do you think so? Like in the first opening moments of this show, they do something. Every ship, it's pretty cliche by this point, but their ship lands in a compromised position, and they grab what they can right before the ship crashes. I liked it when they did it in Hatchet, but they had 6 embryos. Do you think the ship had more embryos on it?
I have no idea. I'm really not sure.
Yeah. And
I don't know, because they each
it?
grab like a case, but they may, and she says retrievable, but then they end up not going and retrieving it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also,
but I wonder.
Granted, I only watched the pilot, which I think is a killer pilot, but then it can go either way. But I actually look at that opening scene where they were taking care of the babies, and he's like, "Oh, we got to kill this one," and she's like, "No, let me see it." I imagine that was like her first malfunction. And she had actually, because she's not just malfunctioning on a physical level, she's malfunctioning on an operational.
And that's quite literally like the first thing that hooked me on this is this. You've made this the one of them that's the mom that actually had to go through producing these embryos into babies, that her emotional programming didn't survive it intact, and that she's changed in a new way. But it also seems like more than that, though. Like, I feel like that's happening parallel with the fact that somebody, their creator, Campion, I assume, built her differently. She is a reprogrammed fucking death bot. And we find out in the second or third episode that that the death bots are actually built by the religious side of this war.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because when the religious people see her and they're like, so she's a reprogrammed necromancer? That's impossible. You can't reprogram those. Like, they don't believe that she could possibly be okay.
I love that they didn't try to go real ballsy and make this actual religion. Like, the religion in the show is kind of like how Game of Thrones did it. Not the 7. That's the boys.
Well, they just sub out the word God for the word Saul. And otherwise,
and they got their own symbol, and they're clerics. They're not priests.
They twisted it just enough. It's very Crusade-y. They look like knights in the Crusades.
Yeah.
And all their shit looks like old knights. Like, their visors come down on their helmets like old style
The
knights.
shields were a bit much. It's like, what are you doing with that?
You know what's weird about this to me is that there's this strange mix of like archaic post-apocalyptic technology. Like, they're all, like you said, they look like knights. And they're in like padded costumes that can look like British sci-fi from the 70s. And then suddenly you get this like flying robot with sonic death beams that is like super high-tech Prometheus level. Like, this is an expensive show that looks inexpensive.
I want one side of this story and not the other. Like, I want to see the robot malfunction trying to raise these kids, and then the kids have to deal with an eternal robot that's just getting worse. Like when our parents, God forbid, go senile.
Yeah.
It's not going to involve them also Logan style being Professor X or being able to like rise up in the air with a sonic death beam and pop us like a blood balloon.
Right.
Which, I mean, like, because it's basically like that to me is more interesting than this. I have something monumentally important to say about religion and humanity's need for it during the end times, which I feel like is what, like, I feel like Ridley Scott set out with a philosophical treatise to write here.
Yeah.
And there's no way around it. It's and to me, it's the same thing that made Battlestar weird. That eventually you're going to come to a head where you're going to have to make a weird religion answer question, and it's going to fuck your show up.
I do love this interesting reveal at the end of the pilot where we find out she has these like OP godlike powers almost. Because the whole show is about oh no, we're atheists, don't believe in religion, don't believe, don't pray, don't do this. But what happens is that character she develops this motherly instinct that obviously isn't part of her programming because she's willing to like do things that put her child in danger. But she develops these, and then combined with her power, she turns herself into a god. And now she has more children who, like, they don't have to pray to a fake god because they have a real one right there in front of them. You know, like, if this is the genesis of humanity, you know, like, we're talking that was Adam and Eve, these two robots, and humanity's going to come out. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, God can fly. God can, like, blow your brain up with her
absolutely.
voice,
She's inadvertently setting up a lot of godlike creation myths and shit.
Yeah,
especially
it's like
if these kids
disobeying
don't know how to build androids, and so there's not androids for the next 1,000 years.
So I would like to talk about the atheism stuff here, because I was just doing a little research on this, and Ridley Scott is apparently an atheist, and yet he keeps going back to like Christian stories, and I'm an atheist and have been for a long time. But I am not someone who's... Their atheists here are, like, weirdly fanatical about being atheists, and that is not the stripe of atheism I've got. And Ridley Scott seems to be one of these guys who is, like, actively hostile to religion, and the way he treats his atheists here, it speaks to a guy who is still working out his shit about religion. Like, it's very weird to me. So I'm like these religious...
Mad at Skydad vibe.
Yeah, and like, I get it, but it's like, man, if you're an atheist, why are you mad at a guy who didn't exist? That is so weird to me.
Well, I think the anger is directed at people who believe in the guy who doesn't exist.
And the thing is, I should get that, but it's at the same time, I'm like, man, whatever gets you through the day. I'm a pretty live and let live guy, I guess. But the notion of these, like, that the wars in the future break down along the lines of atheist and religion seems like a misreading of where this world is going. Like, his futurism is all fucked.
I can see atheists losing it, because I feel like you're vastly overstating the group commitment level of atheists.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, it could have been much more interesting to have been told, like, oh no, humans put these androids and sent them out there, to only find out, oh no, maybe it wasn't. Maybe androids like Skynet set these things out there.
Yeah.
And now, well, I kept going back to the name of this show, which, like, every time I thought about it, it just kept kind of, like, not clicking. Like, Raised by Wolves, like, is the android the wolves? Like, are we?
Yeah.
Is it
the
POV of the kid?
Yeah, you're being raised by a warbot.
Yeah, you're being raised. Yeah, you're being raised by a beast.
Are they saying that she's an animal? Like, that her programming has, like, baseline to animal instinct.
Well, also remember that Raised by Wolves, the basic notion of Raised by Wolves, is as brought in like Mowgli and that kind of thing, is that they come into human society unprepared to be human, even though they are human. And I think that is what we're looking at. Is probably, and I haven't seen all the way through. Les has seen a lot more than me, but I assume we're going to see these kids try to reintegrate into a society after they've been raised in a completely different way.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I mean that's what I took away. I mean, she even howls in the first or second.
Well, I'm getting real Last Man on Earth vibes, where it's like, nah, we're gonna see more humans.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, if you've only you definitely see more humans.
Yeah, there's more humans in episode 2.
I'm gonna keep watching it, but I feel like it is more show than it needs to be, for the fact that Ridley Scott just can't let some of these stories go.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll go back for it or not. It would have to be. There would have to be a lot less shows on TV, because I've got 5-6 seasons of Schitt's Creek to watch, and I'm more likely to go to that than to watch the rest of those.
And if I'm hooking my computer up and leaving my laptop set up in the front of my living room, I'm probably going to go watch like Doom Patrol or something.
We're also in really good time for the weekly stuff, so like The Vow, Lovecraft Country, which we're going to talk about. Fargo's coming up next week. Like, there's just so many good like week-to-week shows right now.
Speaking of too much TV, I failed the TV homework this week and did not get to see one of the shows. But you guys both watched Transplant over on Hulu.
Yep, and so this was one that I threw on the list. I had read a little bit about this show. It's a Canadian-produced show. I think it is actually on NBC, but of course we watched it on Hulu.
I think it's a Peacock.
It's on Peacock. That's what. So they grabbed Peacock is doing the old school Hulu thing, of just grabbing other countries' shows and throwing them on there like we aren't going to notice.
Wait,
So Transplant.
This is on Peacock?
Yeah, well, it's on Peacock. It's also on Hulu. I think it's got an ABC logo on it.
I see.
Or the chime.
Okay. I watched it on Peacock and assumed it was like a Peacock original.
Yeah, no, I think it's a CBC original or Canadian made. They're in a Canadian hospital. The reason I had read about it was it's doing a noteworthy thing. There've been plenty of medical shows. It is a standard medical procedural, but there are plenty of medical shows where there has been a very special episode about the refugee that is undocumented that comes in for medical assistance, or the refugee, maybe doctor, probably nurse, that's working in the hospital, gets found out. They deal with it. Maybe it's a 2-part episode, right?
Right. Yeah.
This show puts that guy front and center. He is an ER doctor who fled Syria, came to Canada, cannot be an ER doctor here because he is an enemy of the state to the Syrian government currently, and they control the universities and they will not release his transcripts and shit. So he can't prove he's a doctor here, really. And then I really enjoyed the pilot. I'm interested to hear what Kyle thought.
Yeah.
While it is ER or Grey's Anatomy or whatever.
Yeah.
This guy is very charming. We were talking about Night of off mic earlier. He kind of reminds me of the first time we see in Riz in Night of like, I just really like this kid.
Like, I can just tell something bad is going to happen to him. Which actually,
and the puppy dog eyes, like, I'm going to feel so bad for him when he does.
Well, and they don't waste time. They have like a racist cop character in here, which, being a Canadian show, there was part of me that was like, oh, thank God, they're racist too.
Right?
It's not just America.
And it gets dangerous real quick. Like, that questioning gets out of hand real fast.
Well, I did have to do a little bit of suspension of disbelief because, well, actually, no. So what we're talking about is when this is set up, our main character is put in a situation where, he's in a hospital and nobody's really taking him seriously. It's a big accident has happened. It's a lot of hustle and bustle. And, he's got the knowledge to help out, but nobody really cares. And all he wants to do is leave. And his attempts to try to leave without being discharged look really sketchy.
Real suspicious, yeah.
And so there were moments where I was like, why is this guy doing this? But then when you find out that he actually has a responsibility to a family member that's underage, like,
he was supposed to pick up his little sister. She barely speaks English.
That was a little scary.
Yeah.
And it just shows all the hurdles you have to go through, like, before you can even, do a job interview for, some type of a medical position.
Yeah. And so there's a very high drama meet cute between him and the head of this hospital. He ends up getting hired, and there's definitely kind of a bomb set to not a real bomb, set to explode later plot-wise about his medical records, because John Hannah, who from Four Weddings and a Funeral and The Mummy and so many other great things, Sliding Doors, he plays the head of the hospital and is just absolutely great. He's he's charming, but also he's a complete asshole and everybody hates him.
I was disappointed. I was doing a medical procedural bingo, and I only missed one square. Nobody put a pen as a tracheotomy in somebody's neck. That was the only one I was missing. I had all the other ones. I believe
I've seen 4 episodes of this, and I believe in episode 2 or 3 somebody does. It's not an emergency trach exactly, but it's pretty close. That's definitely what they're doing.
Well, because that's how the show starts. It's like MacGyver, something bad happens.
Oh, yeah.
And
he like tray pans a dude with a drill.
Yeah, he's on the spot. He's got like the nail clippers. He's like cutting somebody's eye out.
Yeah.
He's doing what he has to.
There's a white best friend, which is a fun swap up. One of the other doctors that he's befriending and like dragging into his shit and like really getting tight with is like the whitest bread white doctor. It's great. I was surprised how much I enjoyed the show. I only really threw it on because I read an article about, hey, we complain about TV a lot on diversity and being just lip service nods on a one-off story and shit. Here's a show that's trying to do it. Give it a watch. And so I did. I don't always watch medical shows. I don't know that I will always keep up with this, but in terms of week-to-week stuff that I can throw on and enjoy without feeling like I'm keeping up with, a code I need to take notes on. I really enjoyed this week to week. I've watched 4 of them so far.
Yeah, my medical procedural was House. Which,
yes,
granted,
I used to watch the
House
shit out of
has
House.
Hugh Laurie and a
So
bunch of other
formulaic.
stuff going for it. But yeah, that whole, like, I know it's going to be lupus in the end, but I just, I want to hang out with my guys and watch him, walk around this hospital.
Are we trying the real? Are we trying the actual cure for this? Cool. I know you're about to crash. We're gonna need a cart in a minute. Then we're gonna try something that is way ethically fucked. And yeah, I loved House.
Yeah, no, this scratches all those itches, and I actually hope this is on TV because I do feel like this is something that would really find its audience.
I hope it does. It is. I mean, it is Canadian. It's not Canadian in that they're pretending to be an American city or they're just being a no city nowhere.
Yeah.
This is in Canada. They've got a guy that's been in a car wreck and I can't remember who he is in one episode, and
I hit a moose.
and as they're doing his blood work and stuff, the doctor just offhand says something to him in French, and he answers, or he does the like, hey, lift your arm, and he does it.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, I mean, you speak French, so there's that at least.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, because that wouldn't be that weird a thing. Everybody in that hospital, half the people in that hospital at least,
Right.
Speak French.
Yeah, no, I've always wanted to go to the French-speaking parts to try all that food up in Canada.
That's the only side I've actually been to is Montreal and Quebec City.
Yeah, no, Anthony Bourdain does a episode up there, and it's just like mouth-watering from start to finish.
Yeah. We went to a restaurant with a maple block outside of it, and they just poured maple syrup on. I mean, an ice block outside of it, and they poured maple syrup on the ice block and rolled you up a lollipop of frozen maple syrup. I thought I was going to have a fucking diabetic seizure in the street. It's so good.
Nice. What better way to get diabetes?
Right? So
speaking of our
Transplant.
show.
You can watch it on Peacock, on Hulu, but I would give it a shot. It's worth it.
All right. So that brings us to our final show of the night, which is, as always, and has been for a while, Lovecraft Country. We're going to talk about the latest episode 7. We're going to definitely dive into spoilers, so if you have not watched it yet, cut it off here, come back later and listen to it. Yeah, let's talk about Lovecraft Country episode 7, I Am.
Oh, man. Now, I mean, I was geeking out at the start of this one just because I knew it was about to be the time travel episode.
Right.
When I saw this was going to be, is it Hippolyta?
Yep.
Her episode with the orrery. It's like, oh shit, it's going to be time travel.
But
this episode is so much more than that.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was a real pressure reliever after we got some great cliffhangers and then the
After
bottle
some body
episode.
horror, crazy shit. Yeah.
So let me ask you before we get too deep into this. Do you guys have a favorite episode of Lovecraft Country so far? Because this is sort of there's a through line, but it's a more episodic show than I was expecting, and you can definitely watch it as like this is the episode of Lovecraft Country that I loved. I think the body horror episode from episode 5 is my favorite.
The haunted house one had been my favorite. The body horror took its spot.
Yeah.
The body horror was my favorite episode. This one, half of this one I think eclipses the body horror one, but just overall I loved that was a fucking EC Comics Tales from the Crypt episode.
Yeah.
Comic book.
No, I don't want to be
thing.
too basic, but the pilot for this, where before we realized like there was a supernatural threat,
right.
Like they did such a good job with just showing how scary people are.
Oh
like,
yeah, that was amazing.
If you are the wrong person in the wrong time period, like it is a horror movie.
Oh yeah,
and
fuck
I feel
these
like
giant flesh Cronenberg dogs.
Exactly.
The real monsters here are the sheriffs.
Yeah.
they're just as scary. What do they say in Attack the Block? He goes, "Oh no, is it more monsters?" And he goes, "Kinda." And the police come in.
So this episode, it's not exactly time travel. I loved her going and discovering the
key
planetary or the giant telescope. Blanking on the name. When she goes and finds that and the huge machine, finding the key in the first place is cool. But
yeah, that was a neat device.
It was just Lovecraft Country up until that point. This is the weird show that we're all starting to get used to.
Yeah.
And then a really beautifully done effect of a like paint splotch missing from reality.
Yeah.
Basically behind them that kind of keeps blipping. It looked like you were cycling TV shows over and over and over and over and over and over and over. is it Doctor Strange where they're dialing the door and he throws the dude into the desert?
Yes.
And, like,
Yeah.
felt like that.
Yeah.
And then we think everybody's cool, and then Hippolyta gets dragged into it. Now, I assume those other two dudes that got, or the other dude that got thrown into that fucking thing had his own weird trip.
I don't know. I get the feeling he might have just been eliminated.
Maybe they just destroyed him.
Yeah.
But she wakes up in a fucking probe ship, basically.
Yep.
With crazy shit in her arms and Afrofuturism, like, giant-haired space lady.
Which,
Beyonce,
when I saw
Beyonce, what was she's called Beyonce or something like that. It's a nod to Beyonce.
When I saw that character, that's initially, well, that was when I got my first suspicion of like what the bigger context of all of the, I don't even know what you would call those, because it looks like time travel at first, but now I'm feeling like maybe it's more like a simulation.
It's more like a multiverse. It's actually, it's like, she gets
it got real Grant Morrison real quick.
Yeah, it did.
Especially when one of the multiverses she jumped, because she starts jumping around into different lives, and one of the ones that, by naming herself, and one of the ones that she jumps to is, like when she starts going on like a very 60s like hoop skirt with planets on it, space adventure. Like it felt like, I loved the comic book Planetary, and this felt like a one-off Planetary or something like that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I dug it, and then
the effects of when she first is thrown into it. There's a scene in Doctor Strange, to call back to that, where it's like his acid mind trip scene where the Ancient One throws him, into space, and you see his body hurling. They do that with this woman, so it's like a normal sized person but hurling through space, and it's all CG, but it looks really tight, especially for a TV show.
Yeah, it looked gorgeous. Can I say one minor thing? And this is a very minor thing, I understand. Maybe I've just played too many role-playing games. But I'm like, okay, your friend shot a cop, and you have the perfect extradimensional thing full of pigs you could throw a body into. Why did he not throw the body into that? Because it's going to come back and hurt the little girl. And I'm like,
no, I thought the same thing. When they were leaving, I was like, that's just because the plot needs it later. Why would you not throw the second cop into that fucking hole?
And Atticus is smarter than that. I felt like it was a writing weakness. I'm like, man, you missed, like, you at least have to have a reason why he didn't do it.
Yeah, it feels like they broke that wrong or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it just because it's so clearly going to blow up later. The comic book is underneath his corpse.
Yep.
And it might not have been a writing mistake. It could have been a directing mistake, because there is a moment where the portal first opens up where if Atticus would have been sucked in right away, like, we're watching it going, why are you still standing next to the portal?
Right.
They're like reacting to the cop. Really, it should have happened so quick that Atticus doesn't see the cop lying there dead until the sirens are already going, and he's grabbing stuff trying to get out of there.
Right.
Because that would explain why he didn't,
if the angles had been set up differently, it would have looked more apparent. Like, because maybe Tick just didn't see the other body at all.
Yeah.
It's really the only explanation for doing that. Because otherwise, you've got to dispose of that body.
Yeah. So that was distracting to me, because I'm like, it was the first thing I thought of. I was like, okay, throw the body in the thing. What are you not doing?
Yeah.
Why are you not doing that?
Throw it!
Because he knows he's there. He watched her kill the cop.
Yep.
I continue to be surprised by Raised by Wolves every... we're Raised by Wolves. Continue to be surprised by Lovecraft Country every single week.
Yeah.
This episode was also nice because I feel like a lot of these haven't peppered in the bigger story as well. Mm-hmm. And not only was Hippolyta, not only was her story directly related to all the stuff we'd already seen, but we got to touch back with Atticus and his dad, and I was like, oh, that moment where he catches his dad with his boyfriend. Man.
Yeah,
I was like, you are a real motherfucker, right?
You know what's... They talked about this, and I bring it up every week, I know. The Lovecraft Country Radio, which has one of the writers on it, and she's the writer of this episode. They talked about that moment, like they fought it in the writers room. They're like, we don't want our lead, our protagonist, to be this guy who uses that word and who's so homophobic. But they're like, there is no way that a black man in the 50s is not homophobic. Like, it's just that for him to be that evolved would not ring true to what we've seen of Atticus, and I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
they have shown me a character that can learn.
Yeah, he could learn better, but he would not. That would not be his first reaction.
in the same way that I deeply did not want Atticus to be the guy that would, when the superior officer's gun didn't fire, walks over and just shoots her in the head.
Right.
I deeply did not want that to be Atticus.
Yeah.
But also, you got to start from somewhere to go somewhere, and so it makes me cringe every time.
No, they've definitely
also
turned him into a bad guy in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
Into almost like a King the Conqueror type guy.
Well, and I think it's going to come into play. That gray in him is going to come into play as they get closer and closer to real power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this Chase and his heritage, at some point, he's going to be faced with the same temptations that the Lodge had.
Oh, let's talk about because while this episode is all about Hippolyta and her journey, and it's fantastic, but the subplot stuff with Ruby and William and God, what's her name? That is actually William. Her.
Let's just call her actually William.
Charlotte. No,
I just added up too.
That stuff was all interesting. But the thing that got me was Letty having the dream. And you know why she's having the dream, right? You know why she's all of a sudden plugged into that? It's because she's pregnant with Atticus's baby, and now she's got the bloodline in her.
Oh, yeah. It's Christina. That's the girl's name.
Christina, yeah.
Christina.
So that made, instantly, I see she's pregnant. I'm like, oh, she's actually pregnant. And that's why she suddenly is connected to all of this. And she hasn't...
And then she throws up,
I love being...
which is universal TV language.
I love being ahead of the show. I love that I was ahead of them for once. Because usually I'm just catching up.
They played that opening scene, though, kind of weird, because it's her and Atticus are intimate now, but, the way he was hugging her was like she was already pregnant. Like, he was hugging her belly, sitting in a chair while she was standing up.
Yeah.
I was like, did she just tell him? Did I miss something?
Yeah. Anyway, this was another fantastic episode of Lovecraft Country. Continues to be one of my favorite shows. If not for Ted Lasso, this would be my favorite show on TV right now.
What? Ted? Oh, yes. Right now. I was like, for the year?
Oh, Ted Lasso could easily be my favorite show for the year.
It might be.
I think that's entirely possible. In terms of what we need. Ted Lasso is the show I watched. I watched it on Thursday night this week. I watched it the second it came on.
Oh, wow. And this was the forgiveness episode, or was that the one?
Yep, that was this
beforehand?
One. Well, I'm almost certain we will talk about Ted Lasso next week, because next week is the season finale.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And I know Les and I at least are completely in love with the show.
I don't want it to end.
I know. Yeah. But anyway, Lovecraft Country is, I think there's 3 episodes left before it ends for the year. And we'll be talking about every episode. We'll definitely be back for more next week. Movies and TV now, possibly. Want to thank all our listeners, thank our patrons. Remind patrons and listeners both that there's bonus episodes this week. If you're a patron, you get 3 episodes of TV Dudes. You get the regular, you get the Scare Me episode, you get a Scare Me interview, and you get the Patreon TV Dudes Movie Club. If you're just a regular
That's
listener,
4 episodes.
yeah, if you're a regular listener, you get 3 of those. So there's a lot of TV Dudes this week, and we hope you guys enjoy all the bonus content. Thank you to our patrons for making that possible. Thank you, Les. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Randy.
And until next time,
TV Dudes out.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.